Which of the following are the aims and objectives of the Indian National Congress at the initial stage? Carefully promote and nurture Indian nationhood. X. Correct. Establish the headquarters for a movement. Do not politicize the Indian people. 1 3 correct. What about second? Yes, 1 and 3 only correct. The main aims of the Indian National Congress in the initial stage were to find a democratic nationalistic movement, politicize and politically educate the people, establishment the headquarters for a movement, promote friendly relations among the nationalist political workers from different parts of the country, develop and propagate an anti-colonial nationalist ideology, formulate and present popular demands before the government with a view to unifying the people over a common economic and political program, develop and consolidate a feeling of national unity among the people irrespective of religion, caste and or province, and carefully promote and nurture Indian nationhood. The main aims of the Indian National Congress in the initial stage were to find a democratic nationalistic movement, politicize and politically educate the people, establish the headquarters for a movement, promote friendly relations among the nationalist political workers from different parts of the country, develop and propagate an anti-colonial nationalist ideology, formulate and present popular demands before the government with a view to unifying the people over a common economic and political program, develop and consolidate a feeling of national unity among the people irrespective of religion, caste or province, and carefully promote and nurture Indian nationhood. Which of the following statements are correct? In the 1905 session, the Indian National Congress condemned the division of Bengal and supported the Swadeshi movement of Bengal. All are correct. Okay. In 1905 session, the Indian National Congress condemned the division of Bengal and supported the Swadeshi movement of Bengal. At the 1906 Congress session in Calcutta, Dadabhai Naoroji stated the INC's objective to be self-government like the UK or the colonies of Australia or Canada. During the Surat session in 1907, the moderate extremist debate took place regarding the pace of the movement and the methods of struggle. Okay. The Indian National Congress decided to oppose Curzon's reactionary policies under the division of Bengal at its convention in 1905, which was presided over by Gokhale. It also decided to support the Swadeshi movement in Bengal and other anti-partition movements. At the Calcutta Congress session 1906, presided over by Dadabhai Naoroji, a significant step forward was made when it was announced that the Indian National Congress objective was self-government or Swaraj like the United Kingdom or the colonies of Australia or Canada. At the Surat session of the Indian National Congress, when the parties split, the moderate extremist disagreement over the movement's speed and tactics of struggle came to a halt. This had severe repercussions for the Swadeshi movement. With reference to the anti-partition movement of Bengal, consider the following statements with reference to the anti-partition movement of Bengal. Okay. October 16, 1905, the day the partition of Bengal formally came into force, was observed as a day of mourning throughout Bengal. People fasted, bathed in the Ganga, and walked barefoot in processions, singing Bande Mataram, which almost spontaneously became the theme song of the movement. Amar Sonar Bangla, the national anthem of present-day Bangladesh, was composed by Rabindranath Tagore and was sung by huge crowds marching in the streets. People tied Rakis on each other's hands as a symbol of unity of the two halves of Bengal. Later in the day, Surendranath Banerjee and Ananda Mohan Bose addressed huge gatherings, perhaps the largest till then, under the nationalist banner. Within a few hours of the meeting, 50,000 rupees was raised for the movement. Soon the movement spread to the other parts of the country, in Pune and Bombay under Tilak, in Punjab under Lala Lajpati Rai, and Ajit Singh. In Delhi, under Syed Haidar Raja, and in Madras under Chidambaram Pillai, and in Madras under Chidambaram Pillai. Okay. With reference to the anti-partition movement of Bengal, consider the following statements. Amar Sonar Bangla became the theme of song of the movement. The spread of the movement remained limited to Bengal and failed to spread other parts of the country. People tied Rakis on each other's hands as symbol of unity of the two halves of Bengal. 3 only correct. Okay. During the anti-partition movement of Bengal, the nationalists of all hues took inspiration from the songs written by Rabindranath Tagore, Rajnikant Sen, Dvijendra Lal Rai, Mukund Das, Syed Abu Muhammad and others. Tagore's Amar Sonar Bangla, written on this occasion, was later to inspire the liberation struggle of Bangladesh and was adopted by it as its national anthem. In Tamil Nadu, Subramania Bharati wrote Sudesha Geetam. Subramania Bharati wrote Sudesha Geetam. In painting, Rabindranath Tagore broke the domination of Victorian naturalism over the Indian art science and took inspiration from Ajanta, Mughal and Rajput paintings. Nandalal Bose, who left the major imprint on Indian art, was the first recipient of a scholarship offered by the Indian Society of Oriental Art, founded in 1907. Thakurmar Juli is a collection of Bengali folk tales and fairy tales. The author Dakshinarajan Mitra Majumdar collected some folk tales of Bengali and published some of them under the name of Thakurmar Juli in 1907. The Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore wrote the introduction to the anthology. Consider the following statements. Thakurmar Juli was authorized by Surendranath Banerjee. Rabindranath Tagore broke the domination of Victorian naturalism over the Indian art scene. Rabindranath Tagore broke the domination of Victorian naturalism over the Indian art scene. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding the temple entry movement? The Vaikom Satyagraha headed by P. Keshava was started in Kerala to demand that the Hindu temples and roads be made accessible to the outcasts. Jatas and Punjab and Madurai participated in the temple entry movement to provide their support. The town of Vaikom, which is located in the northern section of Travancore, developed into a hub activity about temple entry. The Vaikom Satyagraha was a movement that began in Kerala in 1924 and was headed by P. Kesava. It demanded that the Hindu temples and roads be opened to those considered the untouchables. Those who are considered the untouchables. Jatas and Punjab and Madurai joined in protest to provide support. In order to show his support for the campaign, Gandhi went on a tour of Kerala. Reformers and thinkers such as Sri Narayan Guru and Kumaran Asan had previously done a significant amount of effort in this regard. K. Madhavan, a notable social reformer and editor at Deshabhimani, approached the authorities of Travancore with the problem of temple access. The temple entry movement was organized in Kerala once again in 1931. At the same time, the civil disobedience movement was put on hold. The poet Subramaniam Tirumambu, often known as the Singing Sword of Kerala, led a party of 16 volunteers to Guruvayur after being inspired by Kelappan. Among those who participated in the Satyagraha were prominent figures such as Krishna Pillai and A.K. Gopalan. Finally, on November 12, 1936, the Maharaja of Travancore issued a decree that opened all the temples held by government to all the members of the Hindu religion. In 1938, the Rajagopalachari government in Madras implemented a measure that was quite similar to this one. In 1938, the Rajagopalachari government in Madras implemented a measure that was quite similar to this one. The Vaikom Satyagraha headed by P. Keshava was started in Kerala to demand that the Hindu temples and roads be made accessible to the outcasts in 1924. Okay. Jatas and Punjab, Jatas from Punjab, and Madurai participated in the temple entry movement to provide their support. With respect to the servants of India society, consider the following statements. Servants of India society. It was founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale in 1905 with the help of M.G. Ranade. It was founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale in 1905 with the help of M.G. Ranade. With respect to Swami Vivekananda, consider the following statements. He founded the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897. I think wrong. Okay. అర్థమైంది. Okay, correct. Sorry. With respect to Swami Vivekananda, consider the following statements. He founded the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897. He emerged as a preacher of Neo-Hinduism. He emphasized social action and declared that knowledge without action is useless. Narendranath Datta, who later came to be known as Swami Vivekananda, spread Ramakrishna's message and tried to reconcile it to the needs of the contemporary Indian society. Swami Vivekananda, after Ramakrishna's death, founded the Ramakrishna Mission in 1897. The headquarters of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission are at Belur near Calcutta. He emerged as the preacher of Neo-Hinduism, sent certain spiritual experience of Ramakrishna, the teachings of the Upanishads and the Gita, and the examples of the Buddha and Jesus are the basis of Vivekananda's message to the world about human values. He subscribed to the Vedanta, which he considered a fully rational system with a superior approach. His mission was to bridge the gulf between Paramartha means service and Vyavahara means behavior, and between spirituality and day-to-day life, emphasizing social action. He declared that knowledge without action is useless. With respect to Dayananda Saraswati, consider the following statements. Satya Prakash, his famous work, published his views. He rejected the Vedic notion of the Chaturvarna system. No. The Arya Samaj movement, revivalist in form, thought, not in content, was the result of a reaction to the Western influences. It was founded by its founder was Dayananda Saraswati. Dayanand's views were published in his famous work Satya Prakash, The True Exposition. His vision of India included a classless and casteless society, a united India religiously, socially and nationally, and an Indian free from foreign rule, with Aryan religion being the common religion of all. He took inspiration from the Vedas and considered them to be India's rock of ages, the infallible and the true original seed of Hinduism. He gave the slogan back to the Vedas. Dayananda subscribed to the Vedic notion of the Chaturvarna system, in which a person was not born in any caste, but was identified as a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya or a Shudra, according to the occupation the person followed. With respect to Sri Narayana Guru Dharma Paripalana SNDP movement, consider the following statements. Sri Narayana Guru Dharma Paripalana movement, SNDP movement. It was an example of a regional movement born out of conflict between the depressed classes and the upper castes. It was started by Sri Narayana Guru Swami among the Yajavas of Kerala. Narayan Guru himself from the Yajava caste took a stone from the Neyar river and installed it as a Shivalinga at Aruvipavaram on Sivaratri in 1888. It was intended to show that consecration of an idol was not the monopoly of the higher caste. Sri Narayan Guru held all religions to be the same and condemned animal sacrifice, besides speaking against divisiveness on the basis of caste, race, or creed. The self-respect movement was started by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar at a Baliza Naidu in the mid 1920s. The self-respect movement was started by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, a Baliza Naidu in the mid 1920s. Consider the following statements. Sarala Devi Chaudhurani convened the first meeting at the Bharat Stri Mahamandal in Allahabad. Pandita Ramabai Saraswati founded the Arya Mahila Samaj to serve the cause of women. Ramabai Ranade founded the Ladies Social Conference Bharat Mahila Parishad. In 1910, Sarala Devi Chadurani convened the first meeting of Bharat Stri Mahamandal in Allahabad, considered as the first major Indian women's organization set up by a woman. Its objectives include the promotion of education for women, abolition of the Purad system, and improvement in the socio-economic and political status of women all over India. Sarala Devi believed that man working for women's upliftment lived under the shade of Manu. Ramabai Ranade founded the Ladies Social Conference Bharat Mahila Parishad under the parent organization National Social Conference in 1904 in Bombay. Pandita Ramabai Saraswati founded the Arya Mahila Samaj to serve the cause of women. She pleaded for improvement in the educational syllabus of the Indian women before the English Education Commission, which was referred to Queen Victoria. This resulted in medical education for women, which started in Lady Dufferin College. Later, Ramabai Ranade established a branch of Arya Mahila Samaj in Bombay. The moderate extremist differences came to the force in the Banaras session of the Indian National Congress in 1905. Okay. In 1907, the moderates wanted the session at Surat in order to exclude Tilak from the presidency. In December 1905, at the Banaras session of the Indian National Congress presided over by Gokhale, the moderate extremist differences came to the force. The extremists wanted a strong resolution supporting their program at the Banaras session. The moderates, on the other hand, were not in the favor of extending the movement beyond Bengal and were totally opposed to the boycott of the councils and similar associations. At the Calcutta session of the Congress in December 1906, the extremists wanted either Tilak or Lala Lajpat Rai as the president, while the moderates proposed the name of Dadabhai Naoroji, who was widely respected by all the nationalists. Finally, Dadabhai Naoroji was elected as the president. The extremists wanted the 1907 session to be held in Nagpur central provinces with Tilak or Lala Lajpat Rai as the president, along with reiteration of the Swadeshi, boycott and national education resolutions. The moderates wanted the session at Surat in order to exclude Tilak from the presidency, since a leader from the host province could not be the session president, Surat being in Tilak's home province of Bombay. The Viceroy, Lord Minto, and the Secretary of State for India, John Morley, agreed that some reforms were due so as to placate the moderates as well as the Muslims. They worked out a self of measures that came to be known as the Morley-Minto or Minto-Morley reforms that translated into the Indian Councils Act of 1909. And in 1999, Montagu Chelmsford reforms. Okay. 1919, Montagu Chelmsford Chelmsford. 1909 Minte Morley reforms. Okay, some provisions. The elective principle was recognized for the non-official membership of the councils in India. The Indians were allowed to participate in the election of various legislative councils through on the basis of class and community. For the first time, separate electorates for the Muslims for election to the Central Council were established, a most detrimental step for India. The elected members were to be indirectly elected. The local bodies were to elect an electoral college, which in turn would elect the members of the provincial legislatures, who in turn would elect the members of the central legislature. Government acts for the repression of the Swadeshi movement, the Prevention of Seditious Meetings Act 1907, the Criminal Law Amendment Act 1908, the Indian Newspapers Incitement to Offences Act 1908, the Explosive Substances Act 1908, the Indian Press Act, means Vernacular Press Act 1910. Which of the following acts were used for the repression of the Swadeshi movement? The Prevention of Seditious Meeting 1907, the Explosive Substances Act 1908, the Criminal Law Amendment Act 1908, the Criminal Law Amendment Act 1908. With reference to the Morley-Minto reforms or Minto-Morley reforms 1909, consider the following statements. The Indians were allowed to participate in the elections of various legislative councils. It provided for separate electorates for the Muslims for election to the Central Council. It provided for the provision of direct election for the elected members of the council. All are correct, I think. Okay. With reference to the revolutionary activities in Bengal, consider the following statements. Revolutionary activities in Bengal. Consider the following statements. The first revolutionary group in Calcutta, the Anushilan Samiti, was founded by Pramota Mittar, Prafulla Chaki and Khudiram Bose threw a bomb at a white judge Kingsford in Muzaffarpur. The weekly newspaper Yugantar was associated with the Anshulan Samiti. Okay. By the 1870s, Calcutta student community was honeycombed with secret societies, but these were not very active. The first revolutionary groups were organized in 1902 in Midnapur under Gyanendranath Basu, and in Calcutta, the Anshulan Samiti, founded by Pramota Mittar and including Jatindranath Banerjee, Barindra Kumar Ghosh and others, but their activities were limited to giving physical and moral training to the members and remained insignificant till 1907 to 1908. In April 1906, an inner circle within Anshulan, Barindra Kumar Ghosh and Bhupendranath Datta started the weekly Yugantar and conducted a few abortive actions. In December 1907, there were attempts to derail the train on which the Lieutenant Governor Andrew Fraser was travelling. In 1908, Prafulla Chaki and Khudiram Bose threw a bomb at a carriage supposed to be carrying a particularly sadistic white judge. Khudiram Bose threw a bomb at a carriage supposed to be carrying a particularly sadistic white judge, Kingsford, in Muzaffarpur. Kingsford was not in the carriage. Unfortunately, 2 British ladies instead got killed. Prafulla Chaki shot himself dead, while Khudiram Bose was tried and hanged. అది అందుకే పక్కల నిమిషాలు దూరకూడదు. The Ramasai peasant force was organized by Vasudev Balwant Padke. The Chipkar brothers organized the Mitra Mela. Bal Gangadhar Tilak propagated a spirit of militant nationalism through the Ganapati and Shivaji festivals. The first revolutionary activities in Maharashtra were the organizations of the Ramasai peasant force by Vasudev Balwant Padke in 1879, which aimed to rid the country of the British by instigating an armed revolt by disrupting the communication lines. It hoped to raise funds for its activities through dacoits. It was suppressed prematurely. During the 1890s, Tilak propagated a spirit of militant nationalism, including use of violence through the Ganapati and Shivaji festivals, and his journals Kesari and Maharatta. Two of his disciples, the Chipkar brothers Damodar and Balakrishna, murdered the Plague Commissioner of Pune, Rand, and one lieutenant Irist in 1897. Vinayaka Damodar Savarkar and his brother organized the Mitra Mela, a secret society, in 1899, which merged with Abhinav Bharat after Mazzini's Young Italy in 1904. With reference to the revolutionary activities abroad, Sham Krishna Varma had started in London in 1905 a Indian Home Rule Society, India House, as a center for the Indian students, a scholarship scheme to bring radical youth from India, and a general, the Indian sociologist. Revolutionaries such as Savarkar and Hardayal became the members of the India House. Madan Lal Dhingra from this circle assassinated the India Office bureaucrat Curzon to while in 1909. New centers emerged on the continent, Paris and Geneva, from where Madame Bigazzi Kama, a Paris revolutionary who had developed contacts with the French socialists and who brought out Bande Mataram, and Ajit Singh operated. Madan Lal Dhingra assassinated the Indian Office bureaucrat Curzon while Madame Bigazzi Kama developed contacts with the French socialists and brought out Bande Mataram. The Ghadar party was a revolutionary group organized around a weekly newspaper. The Ghadar, with its headquarters at San Francisco and branches along the US coast and in the Far East, the Ghadarites intended to bring about a revolt in India. Their plans were encouraged by two events in 1914, the Komagata Maru incident and the outbreak of the First World War. Inflamed by the Komagata Maru incident with the outbreak of the First World War, the Ghadar leaders decided to launch a violent attack to oust the British rule in India. Frantically, the Ghadar made an attempt to find a leader. Bengali revolutionaries were contacted, and through the efforts of Sachindranath Sanyal and Vishnu Ganesh Pingle, Rash Behari Bose, the Bengali revolutionary who had become famous by his daring attack on Hardinge, the viceroy, finally arrived in Punjab in mid-January 1915 to assume the leadership of the revolt. Hardayal's other major contribution was the creation of a truly internationalist outlook among the Ghadar's revolutionaries. His lectures and articles were full of references to the Irish, Mexican and Russian revolutionaries. For example, he referred to the Mexican revolutionaries as the Mexican Ghadarites. It was clearly stated by the Ghadarites that their objective was the establishment of an independent Republic of India. Adi Katha. Ghadarites. Consider the following statements about Ghadar revolt. The Ghadar party was a revolutionary group with its headquarters at San Francisco. Correct. Raj Bihari Bose was associated with the Ghadar revolt. It was clearly stated by the Ghadarites and that their objective was the establishment of an independent Republic of India. Which of the following were the factors that led to the emergence of the Home Rule League movement? Disillusionment of the moderates, vice versa, the Morley-Minto reforms, 1909. Events of World War I exposed the myth of white superiority. Events of World War I exposed the myth of white superiority. The people were ready to participate in any aggressive movement of protest due to wartime miseries. Tilak and Annie Besant were poised to assume responsibilities and enlarge their spheres of activity. Tilak and Annie Besant. 18th 19 okay. Tilak and Annie Besant was set up their separate league to avoid any friction. The Home Rule movement garnered appeal in the hitherto politically backward regions of Gujarat and Sindh. అన్నిటి సిరీస్లో సేమ్ టాపిక్స్ వస్తున్నాయి ఆల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్స్. Some of the factors leading to the formation of the Home Rule movement were as follows. A section of the nationalists felt that popular pressure was required to attain concessions from the government. The moderates were dissolutions of the Minto Morley reforms 1909. The people were feeling the burden of wartime miseries caused by high taxation and a rise in prices, and were ready to participate in any aggressive movement of protest. The war being fought among the major imperialist powers of the day and backed by naked propaganda against each other exposed the myth of white superiority. Tilak was ready to assume the leadership after his release in June 1914 and had made conciliatory gestures to the government, reassuring it of his loyalty, and to the moderates that he wanted, like the Irish home rulers, a reform of the administration and not an overthrow of the government. He also admitted that the acts of violence had only served to retard the pace of political progress in India. He urged all Indians to assist the British government in its hour of crisis. Annie Besant, the Irish theosophist based in India since 1896, had decided to enlarge the sphere of her activities to including the building of a movement for home rule on the lines of the Irish Home Rule League. Tilak and Annie Besant set up their separate leagues to avoid any friction. Tilak's League. Tilak set up his Home Rule League in April 1916, and it was restricted to Maharashtra, excluding Bombay City, Karnataka, central provinces and Berar. It had 6 branches, and the demands included Swarajya, formation of linguistic states, and education in the vernacular. And Besant's League. Next is Annie Besant Leagues. Annie Besant set up her league in September 1916 in Madras and covered the rest of India, including Bombay City also. Tilak was excluding the Bombay City, and Annie Besant was including Bombay City. It had 200 branches, was closely organized as compared to Tilak's League, and had George Arundale as the organizing secretary. Besides Arundale, the main work was done by B.W. Wadia and C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. The League campaign aimed to convey to the common man the message of home rule as self-government. It carried a much wider appeal than the earlier mobilizations had, and also attracted the hitherto politically backward regions of Gujarat and Sindh. The aim was to be achieved by promoting political education and discussion through public meetings, organizing libraries and reading rooms containing books on national politics, holding conferences, organizing classes for the students on politics, carrying out propaganda through newspapers, pamphlets, posters, illustrated postcards, plays, religious songs, etc., collecting funds, organizing social work, and participating in the local government activities. It's all about Home Rule League campaign, Annie Besant League and Tilak's League. The Russian Revolution of 1917 proved to be an added advantage for the Home Rule campaign. The Home Rule agitation was later joined by Motilal Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, Bhulabhai Desai, Chittaranjan Das, Madan Mohan Malaviya, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Tej Bahadur Sapru, and Lala Lajpat Rai. Some of the leaders became the heads of the local branches. Many of the modern congressmen who were disillusioned with the Congress inactivity, and some members of Gokhale's Servants of India Society also joined the agitation. However, the Anglo-Indians, most of the Muslims and non-Brahmins from the south did not join, as they felt that the home rule would mean the rule of the Hindu majority, and that too many of the high caste, that too mainly by the high caste. The same thing happening now, only high caste people are ruling. Consider the following statements. The members of Gokhale servants of Indian society did not join the home rule agitation. The Anglo-Indians, most of the Muslims and non-Brahmins from the south did not join the home rule agitation. Correct. The home rule agitation was later joined by Jawaharlal Nehru, Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Lala Lajpat Rai. La 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 la. The Berlin Committee, Lala Lajpat Rai is from Punjab. Okay, Lala Lajpat Rai, Punjab. The Berlin Committee for Indian Independence was established by which of the following revolutionaries? The Berlin Committee for Indian Independence, Virendranath Chattopadhyaya, Lala Hardayal, Bhupendranath Datta, Lala Hardayal, Bhupendranath Datta, Virendranath Chattopadhyaya. The Berlin Committee for Indian Independence was established in 1915 by Virendranath Chattopadhyaya, Bhupendranath Datta, Lala Hardayal and others with the help of German Foreign Office under Zimmermann Plan. Which of the following subjects fall under the category of reserved list? Category of reserved list. Category of reserved list. Finance, law and order, irrigation. Finance, law and order, irrigation. With respect to the August Declaration of 1917, consider the following statements. With respect to the August Declaration of 1917, consider the following statements. The demand by the nationalists for self-government for home rule could not be termed as seditious. August Declaration 1917. The demand by the nationalists for self-government or home rule could not be termed as seditious. Okay. The government announced further constitutional reforms in 1918 known as the Montagu-Chelmsford or Montford reforms. Based on this, the Government of India Act 1919 was enacted. The subjects were divided into two lists: reserved, which included subjects such as law and order and finance, land revenue, irrigation, etc., and transferred subjects such as education, health, local governments, industry, agriculture, excise, etc. The reserved subjects were to be administered by the governor through his executive council of bureaucrats, and the transferred subjects were to be administered by the ministers nominated from among elected members of the legislative council. The Secretary of State for India, Edwin Samuel Montagu, made a statement on August 20, 1917 in British House of Commons in what has come to be known as the August Declaration of 1917. The statement said, the government policy is the government policy is of an increasing participation of the Indians in every branch of administration and gradual development of self-governing institutions with a view to the progressive realization of responsible government in India as an integral part of the British Empire. From now onwards, the demand by the nationalists for self-government or home rule could not be termed as seditious. Also, in the use of the term responsible government was implied the condition that the rulers were to be answerable to the elected representatives and not only to the imperial government in London. The objections of the Indian leaders to Montagu statements were twofold. No specific time frame was given. The government alone was to decide the nature and the timing of advance towards a responsible government, and the Indians were resentful that the British would decide what was good and what was bad for Indians. Okay. The Kheda Satyagraha 1918, after Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Before Montagu-Chelmsford reforms and after August Declaration, the Kheda Satyagraha 1918. Because of the drought in 1918, the crops failed in Kheda districts of Gujarat. According to the revenue code, if the yield was less than 1/4 of the normal produce, the farmers were entitled to remission. The Gujarat The Gujarat Sabha, consisting of the peasants, submitted petitions to the highest governing authorities of the province requesting that the revenue assessment for the year 1919 to be suspended. The government, however, remained adamant and said that the property of the farmers would be seized if the taxes were not paid. Gandhi asked the farmers not to pay the taxes. Gandhi, however, was mainly the spiritual head of the struggle. Mainly the spiritual head of the struggle. It was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and a group of other devoted Gandhians, namely Narahari Parikh, Mohanlal Pandya and Ravi Shankar Vyas, who went around the villages, organized the villagers and told them what to do and gave the necessary political leadership. Patel, along with his colleagues, organized the tax revolt which the different ethnic and caste communities of Kedah supported. The revolt was remarkable in that discipline and unity were maintained. Maintained the struggle brought a new awakening among the peasantry. Champaran Satyagraha was the first civil disobedience movement which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi in 1917. Champaran Satyagraha was the first civil disobedience movement which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi in 1917. The Champaran Satyagraha 1917, the first civil disobedience. Gandhi was requested by Rajkumar Shukla, a local man, to look into the problems of the farmers in context of the indigo planters of Champaran in Bihar. The European planters had been forcing the peasants to grow indigo on 3/20th part of the total land, called the Tinkatia system. When towards the end of the 19th century, German synthetic dyes replaced indigo, the European planters demanded high rents and illegal dues from peasants in order to maximize their profits. Before the peasants could shift to other crops, besides the peasants were forced to sell the produce at the prices fixed by the Europeans. Gandhi was joined now by Rajendra Prasad, Mazharlal Haq, Mahadev Desai, Narahari Parekh and J.V. Kripalani. The government appointed a committee to get into matter and nominated Gandhi as a member. Gandhi was able to convince the authorities that the Tinkatia system should be abolished and that the peasants should be compensated for the illegal dues extracted from them. As a compromise with the planters, he agreed that only 25% of the money taken should be compensated. Within a decade, the planters left this area. Gandhi had won the first battle of civil disobedience in India. Gandhi had won the first battle of civil disobedience in India. Other popular leaders associated with the Champaran Satyagraha are Braji Kishore Prasad, Anurag Narayan Sinha, Ram Navami Prasad and Shambhusharan Verma. The Lucknow Pact between the Congress and the Muslim League could be considered as an important event in the course of nationalist struggle for freedom. While the League agreed to present joint constitutional demands with the Congress to the government, the Congress accepted the Muslim League position on separate electorates, which would continue till any one community demanded joint electorates. The Muslims were also granted a fixed proportion of seats in the legislatures at the All India and the provincial levels. The joint demands were the government should declare that would confer self-government on the Indians at any early date. The representative assemblies at the central as well as provincial levels should be further expanded with an elected majority and more powers given to them. The term of the Legislative Council should be 5 years. The salaries of the Secretary of State for India should be paid by the British Treasury and not drawn from the Indian funds. Half of the members of the Viceroys and the Provincial Governors Executive Council should be Indians. The Government of India Act of 1919, Montagu Chelmsford reforms. On August 20, 1917, the British government declared for the first time that its objective was the gradual introduction of responsible government in India. The Government of India Act of 1919 was thus enacted, which came into force in which came for 1921. This act is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu was the Secretary of State for India, and Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. The features of this act were as follows. It relaxed the central control over the provinces by demarcating and separating the central and the provincial subjects. The central and the provincial legislatures were authorized to make laws on their respective list of subjects. However, the structure of government continued to be centralized and unitary. It further divided the provincial subjects into two parts, transferred and reserved. The transferred subjects were to be administered by the governor with the aid of the ministers responsible to the legislative council. The reserved subjects, on the other hand, were to be administered by the governor and his executive council without being responsible to the legislative council. This dual scheme of governance was known as the diarchy, a term derived from the Greek word diarchy, which means double rule. Diarchy rule means double rule. However, this experiment was largely unsuccessful. It introduced for the first time bicameralism and direct elections in the country. It introduced for the first time bicameralism and direct elections in the country. Thus, the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by a bicameral legislature consisting of an upper house, the Council of States, and a lower house, the Legislative Assembly. The majority of the members of both houses were chosen by direct election. It required that 3 of the 6 members of the Viceroy's Executive Council, other than Commander-in-Chief, were to be Indians. It extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for the 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans. It granted franchise to a limited number of people based on property tax or education. It created a new office of the High Commissioner for India in London and transferred to him some of the functions hitherto performed by the Secretary of the State for India. It provided for the establishment of a Public Service Commission. Hence, a Central Public Service Commission was set up in 1926 for recruiting the civil servants. It separated for the first time the provincial budgets from the central budget and authorized the provincial legislatures to enact their budgets. It provided for the appointment of a statutory commission to inquire into a report on its working after 10 years of its coming into force. Just 6 months before the Montagu reforms were to be put into effect, 2 bills were introduced in the Imperial Legislative Council. One was dropped, but other than extension to the Defence of India's Regulations Act 1915 was passed in March 1919. It was what was officially called the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act, but popularly known as the Rowlatt Act. It was based on the recommendations made in the previous year to the Imperial Legislative Council by the Rowlatt Commission, headed by the British Judge Sir Sidney Rowlatt, to investigate the seditious conspiracy of the Indian people. The act allowed the political activists to be tried without juries or even imprisoned without trial. It allowed the arrest of the Indians without warrant. On the mere suspicion of treason, such suspects could be tried in secrecy without recourse to legal help. A special panel consisting of 3 High Court judges was to try such suspects, and there was no court of appeal above that panel. This panel could even accept evidence not acceptable under the Indian Evidences Act. The law of habeas corpus, the basis of civil liberty, was sought to be suspended. The object of the government was to be replace the repressive provisions for the Wartime Defence of India Act 1915 by a permanent law. So, the wartime restrictions on freedom of speech and assembly were reimposed in India. There was strict control over the press, and the government was armed with a variety of powers to deal with anything. The authorities choose to consider as terrorism as revolutionary tactics. During the civil disobedience movement in Peshawar, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan's educational and social reforms work among the Pathans had politicized them. Ghaffar Khan, also called Badshah Khan, and Frointer Gandhi had started the first Pushto political monthly Fukton and had organized a volunteer brigade, Khudai Khidmatgars, popularly known as the Red Shirts. Khidmatgars were pledged to the freedom struggle and non-violence. The philosophy of the bomb was written by Bhagavati Charan Ohra. In 1929, a bomb exploded under the train of Viceroy Lord Irwin on the Delhi to Agra railway line. The Viceroy escaped unhurt, and Mahatma Gandhi thanked God for the narrow escape. Okay. Condemning the revolutionary act, his article, The Cult of Bomb. The trade union movement was led by All India Trade Union Congress (AITUC), founded in 1920. Lala Lajpat Rai was its first president and Diwan Chaman Lai its general secretary. Tilak was also one of the moving spirits. Dandi March, March 12, April 6, 1930. On March 2nd, 1930, Gandhi informed the Viceroy of his plan of action. According to this plan, few realized its significance when it was first announced. Gandhi, along with a band of 78 members of Sabarmati Ashram, was to march from his headquarters in Ahmedabad through the villages of Gujarat for 240 miles. On reaching the coast at Dandi, the salt law was to be violated by collecting salt from the beach. Even before the proposed march began, thousands thronged to the ashram. Gandhi gave the following directions for the future action. Wherever possible, civil disobedience of the salt law should be started. Foreign liquor and cloth shops can be picketed. We can refuse to pay taxes if we have the requisite strength. Lawyers can give up practice. Public can boycott law courts by refraining from litigation. Government servants can resign from their posts. All these should be subject to one condition: truth and non-violence as means to attain Swaraj should be faithfully adhered to. Local leaders should be obeyed after Gandhi's arrest. The massacre at Jallianwala Bagh shocked the Indians and many British as well. The Secretary of State for India, Edwin Montagu, ordered that a committee of inquiry to be formed to investigate the matter. So on October 14, 1919, the Government of India announced the formation of the Disorders Inquiry Committee, which came to be more widely and variously known as the Hunter Committee or Commission, after the name of the chairman, Lord William Hunter, former Solicitor General for Scotland and the Senator of the College of Justice in Scotland. The purpose of commission was to investigate the recent disturbances in Bombay, Delhi and Punjab, about their causes and the measures taken to cope with them. There were 3 Indians among the members, namely Sir Chimanlal Harilal Setalwad, Vice Chancellor of the Bombay University and Advocate of the Bombay High Court, Pandit Jagat Narayan, lawyer and member of the Legislative Council of the United Provinces, and Sardar Sultan Ahmad Khan, lawyer from Gwalior state. The Muslims were angered by the treatment meted out to Turkey by the British after the First World War. The Muslims in India, as the Muslims all over the world, regarded the Sultan of Turkey as as their spiritual leader, Khalifa. So naturally, their sympathies were with Turkey during the war. Turkey had allied with Germany and Austria against the British. When the war ended, the British took a stern attitude towards Turkey. Turkey was dismembered and the Khalifa removed from power. This incensed the Muslims all over the world. In India too, the Muslims demanded from the British that the Khalifa's control over the Muslim sacred places should be retained and the Khalifa should be left with sufficient territories after the territorial arrangements. In early 1919, the the Khilafat committee was formed under the leadership of the Ali brothers, Sakut Ali and Muhammad Ali. Maulana Azad, Ajmal Khan, Hasrat Mohani to force the British governments to change its attitude towards Turkey. Thus the ground for a countrywide agitation was prepared. The Khilafat leaders are also clearly spelled out that unless peace terms after the war were favorable to Turkey, they could stop all cooperation with the government. Gandhi, who was the president of the All India Khilafat Committee, saw in the issue a platform from which mass and united non-cooperation could be declared against the government. It was quite clear that the support of the Congress was essential for the Khilafat movement to succeed. However, although Gandhi was in favor of launching Satyagraha and non-cooperation against the government on the Khilafat issue, the Congress was not united on this form of political action. Tilak was opposed to having an alliance with the Muslim leaders over a religious issue. He was also skeptical of Satyagraha instrument of politics. Spread of the Khilafat non-cooperation movement. In July 1921, the Ali brothers gave a call to the Muslims to resign from the army as it was unreligious. The Ali brothers were arrested for this in September. Gandhi echoed their call and asked the local Congress committee to pass their similar resolutions to that effect. Now the Congress gave a call to the local Congress bodies to start civil disobedience if it was thought that the people were ready for it. Already a non-tax movement against the Union Board taxes in Midnapur, Bengal and in Guntur, Andhra was going on. In Assam, strikes in the tree plantations, steamer services and Assam Bengal railways had been organized. J.M. Sen Gupta was a prominent leader in these strikes. In 1921, the visit of the Prince of Wales to India invited strikes and demonstrations. The spirit of defiance and unrest gave the rise to many local struggles such as the Awadh Kisan movement UP, the Eka movement UP, the Mapila revolt Malabar and the Sikh agitation for the removal of the Mahants in Punjab. Dr. Ambedkar was appointed by the Bombay Legislative Council to work with Simon Commission. In October 1928, Ambedkar went before the commission. He argued for universal adult franchise for both male and female alike, for provincial autonomy in the provinces and diarchy at the centre. On behalf of Bahishkrita Hitakarni Sabha, he submitted a memorandum of the rights and safeguards he felt that were required for the depressed classes. Ambedkar said that there was no link between the depressed classes and the Hindu community and stated that the depressed classes should be regarded as a distinct and independent minority. He asserted that the depressed classes as a minority needed far greater political protection than any other minority in British in India because of its educational backwardness, its economic poor conditions, its social enslavement, and for the reason that it suffered from certain grave political disabilities from which no other community suffered. In the circumstances, Dr. Ambedkar demanded for the political protection of the depressed classes representation on the same basis as the Mohammedan minority. He wanted reserved seats for the depressed classes if universal adult franchise was granted. In case of universal franchise was not granted, Ambedkar said he would campaign for a separate electorate for the depressed classes. ఓకే 1 అవర్ పట్టింది ఈ పేపర్కి. క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ ఇది మోడర్న్ ఇండియా 3 క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్. అయిపోయింది ఇది ఆల్రెడీ, అయినా చదువుదాం. క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ మిస్సింగా? ఓకే ఓకే. The doctrine of lapse. The doctrine of lapse. In simple terms, the doctrine stated that the adopted son could be the heir to his foster father's private property but not the state. It was for the paramount power, the British, to decide whether to bestow the state on the adopted son or to annex it. Though this policy is attributed to Lord Dalhousie 1848 to 1856, he was not its originator. It was a matter of chance that during Lord Dalhousie's term, many rulers of states died without a male issue, and 7 states were annexed under the doctrine of lapse. The most important of these were Satara 1848, Jhansi and Nagpur 1854. The other small states included Jaitpur, Bundelkhand, Sambalpur, Orissa and Bhagat, Madhya Pradesh. Lord Dalhousie annexed Awadh in 1858. After disposing Nawab Wazid Ali Shah on the grounds of misgovernment. Adi katha. Various historians British have defined the nature of the revolt of 1857 as per their views and understanding. A few of them are as follows. Nature of the revolt. R.C. Muzamdar and S.N. Sen. Not an organized national revolt. R.C. Muzamdar. Neither first nor national war of independence. V.D. Savarkar, War of Independence. Eric Stokes, elastic in character. Lawrence and Seeley, mere sepoy mutiny. T.R. Holmes, a conflict between civilization and barbarism. James Outram, a Mohammedan conspiracy making capital of Hindu grievances. Percival Spear, 3 phases of the revolt. Conclusion, not quite the first war of independence, but sowed the seeds of nationalism and quest for freedom from the alien rule. క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ ఎక్కడ పోయింది? The period after World War I witnessed the rise of 2 eminent women in Indian politics. Annie Besant, the president of the Theosophical Society and a founder of the Home Rule League, was elected the president of the Congress in 1917. The same year, Sarojini Naidu, the England-educated poetess who had been delivering patriotic speeches at the Congress sessions since 1906, led a delegation to London to meet the Secretary of State, Montagu, to demand female franchise. The following year, she moved a resolution at the Congress session demanding equal eligibility for voting rights for both men and women. In 1925, she too was elected the president of the Congress, but despite being inspirational figures, these two leaders could neither evolve an ideology for women's emancipation nor could carve out for them a niche in nationalist politics. The important points of the Mountbatten Plan were as follows: Punjab and Bengal legislative assemblies would meet in two groups, Hindus and Muslims, to vote for partition. If a simple majority of either group voted for partition, then these provinces would be partitioned. In case of partition, two dominants two constituent assemblies would be created. Sindh would take its own decision. Referendums in the northwest Frontier province and Sylhet district of Bengal would decide the fate of these areas. Since the Congress had conceded a unified India, all their other points would be met, namely independence for the princely states ruled out. They would join either India or Pakistan. Independence for Bengal ruled out. Accession of Hyderabad to Pakistan ruled out. Mountbatten supported the Congress on this. Freedom to come on August 15, 1947, and a boundary commission to be set up if partition was to be affected. Thus, the League's demand was considered to the extent that Pakistan would be created, and the Congress position on unity was taken into account to make Pakistan as small as possible. Mountbatten's formula was to divide India, but retain maximum unity. The Government of India Act 1935 legislature. The bicameral legislature was to have an upper house, the Council of States, and a lower house, the Federal Assembly. The Council of States was to be a 260-member house, partly directly elected from the British Indian provinces and partly 40% nominated by the princes. The Federal Assembly was to be a 375-member house, partly indirectly elected from the British Indian provinces and partly one-third nominated by the princes. Oddly enough, the election to the Council of States was direct, and that to the Federal Assembly indirect. The Council of States was to be a permanent body with one-third members retiring every third year. The duration of the assembly was to be 5 years. The three lists for legislation purposes were to be federal, provincial, and concurrent. The members of the Federal Assembly could move a vote of no confidence motion against the ministers. The Council of States could not move a vote of no confidence. The system of religion-based and class-based electorates were further extended. 80% of the budget was non-votable. The Governor General had residuary powers. He could restore cuts in grants, restore cuts in grants, B, certify the bills rejected by the legislature, C, issue ordinances, and D, exercise his veto power. During the Quit India movement, the parallel government or Prati Sarkar was set up, and Nana Patil was its most important leader. The important was marked by attacks on government collaborators, informers, and talatis or lower level officials, and Robin Hood style robberies. Nyayanandan Mandals or people's courts were set up, and justice dispensed. Prohibition was enforced, and Gandhi marriages celebrated to which untouchables were invited and which with no ostentation was allowed. Village libraries were set up and education encouraged. The native state of Aundh, whose ruler was pro-nationalist and had got the constitution of his state drafted by Gandhiji, provided invaluable support by offering refuge and shelter to the Prati Sarkar activists. The Prati Sarkar continued to function till 1945. The civil disobedience movement popularized a variety of forms of mobilization Prabhat Paris, in which bands of men, women, and children went around at dawn singing nationalist songs, became the rule in villages, towns. Patrikas are illegal news sheets, sometimes written by hand and sometimes cyclo-styled, were part of the strategy to defy the hated Press Act, and they flooded in the country. Magic lanterns were used to take the nationalist message to the villagers, and as before, incessant tours by individual leaders and workers, and by groups of men and women, and the holding of public meetings, big and small, remained were staple of the movement. Children were organized into Vanar Senas or monkey armies, and at least one place the girls decided they want to their own separate Manjari Sena or cat army. Gandhi's concept of Swaraj had its own brand of economic vision. He wanted a decentralized economy without state control. Gandhi dismissed both capitalism and Western socialism. He developed the idea of village Sarvodaya. He advocated a back to the roots vision when production was simultaneous with consumption and distribution, and the vicious circle of money economy was absent. In a letter he wrote to Henry Pollack, a British born lawyer, journalist, and activist in South Africa in 1909, Gandhi expressed the view that India's salvation lay in unlearning what had been learned. He wanted the railways, telegraphs, hospitals, lawyers, doctors, and other modern trappings to be discarded, and the so-called upper classes to learn to live the simple life of the peasant. He was against large-scale industrialization. He had strong objections to labor saving the machinery. Men go on saving labor till thousands are without work, are thrown on open streets to die of starvation. He was not against instruments and machinery that saved individual labor. He put forward his theory of trusteeship, under which he wanted the capitalists to be the trustees, and as such would take care of not only themselves but also of others. Very, very important. The civil disobedience movement was formally suspended by Gandhi in April 1934. The decision was welcomed by the Indian business community, who were relieved by the return of constitutionalism to Indian politics. The political opinion of the big Indian businessman was clearly divided at this junction on this issue of imperial preference and nationalism, and this became manifest once again around the Les Modi Pact of 1933. Under the leadership of Modi, MODY, the Bombay cotton mill owners who produced coarse cotton were prepared to accept the preference of Lancashire, but the Ahmedabad mill owners were not, as they more directly faced competition from Lancashire in the market for finer cotton goods. Yet, despite their protest, the pact was signed, inviting condemnation from the nationalists as well as all the business organizations except the Bombay Big Business. And by the pact, the Bombay Textiles Group agreed to further that preferences for the British textiles in place of Japanese imports. During the Indian independence, several socialist and communist groups came into existence all over the country. In Bombay, S.A. Dange published a pamphlet. Gandhi and Lenin started the first socialist weekly. The socialist in Bengal, Muzaffar Ahmad, brought out Navayug and later founded the Langal in cooperation with the poet Nazrul Islam. In Punjab, Ghulam Hussain and others published Inquilab, and in Madras, M. Singarveli founded the Labour Kisan Gazette. The Pitt India Act brought two important changes in the constitution of the company 1784. First, it constituted a Department of State in England known as the Board of Control, whose special function was to control the policy of the court of directors, thus introducing the dual system of government by the company and by a parliamentary board which lasted till 1858. The board of control had no independent executive power. Secondly, the act reduced the number of members of the executive council to 3, of whom the commander in chief was to be 1. It also modified the councils of Madras and Bombay on the pattern of that of Bengal. The act placed the civil and military government of the companies in due subordination to the government in England. The court of directors retained their patronage and their right to dismissing their servants. The Government of India Act 1919 introduced what is called diarchy in the provinces. Under this system, the subjects to be dealt with by the provincial government were divided into 2 parts: reserved and transferred subjects. The reserved subjects were administered by the governor with the help of the members of the executive council, who were nominated by him and who were not be responsible to the legislature, while the transferred subjects were administered by the governor, acting with the ministers appointed by him from among the elected members of the legislature, and who were to be responsible to the legislature and were to hold office during his pleasure. The reserved subjects were land revenue, famine relief, justice, police, pensions, criminal tribes, printing presses, irrigation and waterways, mines, factories, electricity, gas, boilers, labor welfare, industrial disputes, motor vehicles, minor ports, excluded areas and public services. On the transferred side, the ministers advised the governor in respect of education other than European and Anglo-Indian education, libraries, museums, local self-government, medical relief, public health and sanitation, agriculture, cooperative societies, veterinary department, fisheries, public works, excise industries, weights and measures, control of public entertainments, religious and charitable endowments, etc. Gandhi, the principal architect of the Indian freedom struggle, and B.R. Ambedkar, the principal architect of the Constitution of Independent India, shared many ideas, though in many ways they held in different beliefs. The two leaders differed over the nature and scope of democracy as a method of government. Ambedkar advocated a parliamentary system of government for independent India, but Gandhi had a very little respect for the parliamentary system of governance. Gandhi believed that democracy tends to get converted into the mass democracy with a propensity for domination by the leaders. Ambedkar was inclined towards mass democracy as it could act as a pressure on the government with the advancement of the oppressed people. In political prospects, Ambedkar believed in freedom of religion, free citizenship and separation of state and religion. Gandhi also endorsed the idea of freedom of religion, but never approved the separation of politics and religion. But religion as an agent of social change as well as was well accepted by both the leaders. Both denounced in theory and thinking anything that either decried or diminished the role of religion in the life of an individual or in the life of the society. The notions of violence and non-violence got differing explanations from Gandhi and Ambedkar. Ambedkar held absolute non-violence as an end and relative violence as a means, whereas Gandhi never made such a distinction and was an avowed opponent of violence any of kind.